It's good to see everybody. I'm going through this the little boxes to see who's here. So thanks for making time to join us today. We have a wonderful program with Ray White coming up, but we'll start with our business part of our meeting. So we'll get rolling. So welcome everybody. Want to say one more time, and you'll see it in the e-blast coming up next week, that we're going to shift from a waiting room model to get into our Zoom meeting to a password model, which probably most folks are familiar with, having to add a password to get into the meeting room. So watch for that in the e-blast and the Zoom invite that's included in the e-blast. So want to make it a little more flexible for everybody to hop on the call. So with that, Jessica, shall we do the Pledge of Allegiance?
There you go.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tom Golden, where are you?
Right here.
Should we start with our invocation?
Okay.
Thank you.
You ready?
Ready.
Here are some words from Mother Teresa, Greta Garbo, and Jonathan Winters. Every time you smile at someone, it is an action of love, a gift to that person, a beautiful thing, as love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. To love a person is to learn the song that is in their heart and to sing that to them when they have forgotten. And one of the most terrible fears that anybody should have is not war, not a disease, not cancer or heart problems or food poisoning. It's a man or woman without a sense of humor. So if things begin to go sideways, never forget that you may never know all the good a simple smile can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, let's welcome our guests. Allison, I'll start with you because I saw Jonathan is here with you, and then I wanted to take a look to see if, oh, Laura, you're here too, so you'll be able to introduce your guests. So Allison, we'll start with you.
Yes, good afternoon, President Sue and fellow Rotarians. Can you hear me all right?
Can.
And I would like to welcome my guest today, Jonathan Partridge, who is the Community Engagement and Development Director at Liberty House, the Child Advocacy Center. And Jonathan is soon going to be welcomed into the Rotary Club, I believe. Thank you, President Sue.
Thank you, Allison. Good to see you again, Jonathan.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Laura, is your student here?
Yes, he
Okay,
is.
go for it.
Okay, President Sue and fellow Rotarians, it's my honor to introduce our South Salem High School Student of the Month for spring sports. And this has been a little bit difficult in that we did not have spring sports last year. And we've only had a week of competition this year due to all of our COVID pivots. So we're really looking at students freshman and sophomore years in the selection process. And this student had an outstanding freshman and sophomore year on our track and field team, having established our freshman records in the 800, the 1500, and the 3000. He was named the USA Track and Field Oregon Male Track Athlete of the Year. And his sophomore year, he was an All-American in the 800 and qualified for state in the 1500. He just last weekend won the district cross country title. And though that is technically a fall sport, it did just happen in the spring. So I feel like it's aligned with this spring sport recognition. He's also a really strong student taking our IB classes in math and English and Spanish and chemistry and physics and biology. And just as important, if not more so, this student is grateful, he's personable, he's always helping others. In fact, after winning the conference race in a personal best time, he resisted the temptation to flop on the ground and grasp for breath like most people do at the end of the race. And instead he ran back to the finish line and he cheered on his teammates and he cheered on the runners from the other schools. And that's who he is. So please welcome Evan Gonzalez.
Good to have you here, Evan. I will call on you in just a few minutes to talk to us about what you're all up to and what your plans are. And maybe if the sweatshirt you have on is of significance. So
Thank you.
yeah, you bet. So I'll call on you in just a moment. Renee, you had a guest?
I do. My guest today is our daughter-in-law, Archana Thapa Sherpa. She's the Director of Facilities Management and Procurement at the Oregon Department of Justice. And she is the mother of our granddaughter, Maya. We were talking about grandchildren earlier. Maya graduated from Sprague in December and will sign her letter of intent to run for Chemeketa Storm tomorrow. And I know that sounded like a bell ringer, so look for my donation.
Love it. Do we have any other guests or visiting Rotarians? All righty, not seeing.
Yes, hello, everyone. My name is Terry Schroeder. I'm a guest of Lucille Sage. She asked me to join you folks today. And I don't see Lucille on the meeting
Call.
so far, but she's expecting to come on. And so just to introduce myself, I guess, it's a pleasure to be here. And I am a civil commitment coordinator for the Oregon Health Authority and Certification and Licensing Department. And we offer technical assistance for clinicians and programs throughout the state, and also certify facilities involved with crisis intervention and psychiatric care.
Oh, welcome, Terry. Thanks for joining us.
Sure, good to be here.
Good to have you. All right, scanning quickly. I don't see any other guests or visiting Rotarians. So, so now, Evan, back to you. Ms. Tiffin gave you a wonderful introduction. Obviously, you're very accomplished to date, and so we're excited to hear from you about what you're up to and what your plans are. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank all you guys for being here. So as you heard from Ms. Tiffin, that I am in cross country and track. I've been varsity for a while, but I think the biggest thing that I've accomplished is making sure that my team has just always been, I've been able to carry them along with me. I've been in IB classes, as you heard from Ms. Tiffin as well. I've actually almost taken every IB science class, which, if you cannot tell, that's actually my passion other than running. So my plans in the future are to actually go to Washington State University, go Cougs, and I'll be walking on their team for cross country and track. So I have a lot more to look forward to, a lot more running to work for. But it's been a lot of work this last year, getting the team ready and all. So I've been really excited to just be able to work with them, and I'm excited to look forward to what they'll be doing in the next couple of years. So,
Oops. We'll give them a minute to reboot. Okay,
Looks like
Laura.
you might have lost connection.
Yeah, so Laura, if he pops back on, just holler. Oh, there you are. There you are, Evan.
sorry,
That's
I
okay,
disconnected it.
Not your fault.
Oh, sorry. But so where did I leave off? Sorry, guys.
You were talking about walking on at Washington State, and then you started
Yes.
to garble up.
All right. So walking on to Washington State for cross country and track. So I'll be studying chemical engineering there and hopefully become a polymer designer. So I'm super excited for that. And I'm looking forward to watching the rest of my athletes grow, kind of see how they do. And I'd like to thank you all for inviting me here today.
Well, we're honored to have you here, Evan. I'm excited about following your future. So you're already very accomplished, and it sounds like you have great plans ahead. So I know Ms. Tiffin will keep us posted on what you're up to and your future achievements. And there's actually a polymer operation up in Woodburn that's a nationwide polymer business, right? So maybe we'll get you back after you graduate. locally. Evan, in your honor, you'll be receiving a Rotary Challenge coin as well as a certificate as our Spring Student of the Month for athletics. And that'll be going in the mail to Ms. Tiffin to get to you. So thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate you making the time, and congratulations on all that you've achieved and will achieve soon, right into the future. So looking forward to your next chapter. So thank you, Evan. And go Cougs. Absolutely, go Cougs. I didn't see any club announcements, so we will continue to move on. Brenna, how about bell ringers?
How about them?
How about them?
I have a handful of them to share with y'all today. So the first one is Linda Wooters. So you don't have to stand up because you know how that goes. But all good and wonderful things come to an end, and a happy ending it is. Linda Wooters' husband, Michael, is in the midst of retirement after 31 years in Salem with Edward Jones Investments. The Edward Jones opportunity has helped fulfill clients as well as the Wooters' financial goals and made dreams come true. Michael and Linda cannot say enough good about Edward Jones, and as is said in company jargon, thank you, Ted. As Michael exits, 5 newer, carefully handpicked and personally mentored financial advisors take his place. Wow, took 5 people to replace Michael. That's cool. He must have been quite an advisor. A special shout out to one of those financial advisors in particular, their son, Tyson Wooters. Please ring the bell loudly 31 times, at least figuratively, but the 31 times is the bell ringer donation for Michael's satisfying career and the onward march of a fine company that operates from the bottom up and puts clients' interests first.
Great. Okay, help me count. Well done, Linda. Well done. This might have been one for extra because I kind of missed the bell one time. So
there you go. Well, I lost count. I think Zoom tried to correct for the noise and drown it out, but congratulations, Michael. Very cool. Iria Nishimura is ringing the bell. Mother's Day is coming up soon, and she's wondering if you have thought about what you would like to give the mothers in your life. Willamette Valley Hospice has a jewelry sale to raise funds for hospice music therapy program on Saturday, May 1st from 1 to 5. This event is held in a private garden with strict COVID-19 safety protocols in place. You can register at WVH registration. I'll share the link in the chat here in a minute. And you can receive information with the address to the private garden. Find more information at their website. Please ring the bell for Willamette Valley Hospice's jewelry sale. All right. Next up, Adam Kohler, 2 bell ringers from Adam, which after 31, I don't know, Adam, you got to step your game up. He's ecstatic to share that the real estate market is in full bloom and his family has benefited very well. The family found an awesome house in South Salem and moved a few weeks ago. They were then able to sell their house in 2 days after receiving 12 offers. Wow. Adam's new house is perfect for entertaining, and he's convinced his wife, Mackenzie, that yes, they can now host folks, including Rotarians, once the pandemic has waned. Second, Adam's super fantastic, wonderful, intelligent, and beautiful daughter, Bailey, is celebrating her 18th birthday today. Were Rotary able to meet in person, Adam would have brought Bailey along to lunch as one last way to torture her before she escapes his grasps and jumps into adulthood. Bailey will be graduating from South Salem High School this June with a 4.5 GPA and her full IB diploma. Wow, those adjectives were accurate. Bailey will be attending the University of Washington in the fall. Go Huskies. And Adam couldn't be prouder of his little girl. Happy birthday, Bailey. Ring the bell.
I got 2 for you, Adam.
All right. The last one of the day is from Jen Columbus. Jen is ringing the bell for today's speaker, Ray White. Jen had the privilege of working with Ray at SMART for 2 years and has enjoyed watching him thrive in his career at Salem Health in community leadership efforts and watching him become a great father and outstanding young professional. Thank you, Ray, for being here to speak today at Rotary, for your friendship, and for all you do to make the community stronger, more aware, and a better place to live and work. Ring the bell.
Thank you, everyone. Those are fun, wonderful bell ringers.
I have a bell ringer from the floor.
Alrighty.
Ryan Collier ringing the bell for my 50th year, but more, I'm actually ringing the bell for all my Rotarian friends. It was humbling to see that probably the largest well wishes I got were from all my Rotarian friends that just said beautiful things about me and their care about me. And that was probably the greatest gift I really got, was your well wishes. And in fact, a lot of them, my executive assistant actually, without me even knowing, took your well wishes, put them on little cards in this well wishes box. And so all day on my birthday, I was just picking one at a time out and reading these beautiful comments you had for me and practically crying the whole time. And I'm so grateful for you all. And many of you have little cards in here that you left me nice messages. And I'm just very grateful for my Rotary family. It blesses my heart every day and makes me love this organization.
That's very cool, Ryan.
And I have one from the floor. This is Ozzy.
Hi, Ozzy.
I'm ringing a bell for Adam. I was a freshman, Adam, at Washington State in 1954. And Cougs are a good outfit. They're not quite as good as the Ducks now, but they are a good outfit. And I'm going to ring the bell 65 times. You don't need to ring it, for the years that have ensued between his freshman year and my freshman year. Thank you.
How many do you want, Ozzy?
Well, just ring it once, but I'm going to ring it 65.
Okay.
I'll make 65 donations for that period of time.
Got it.
Thank you.
Very generous. All righty. Any other bell ringers today? Not seeing anybody. Thank you, everyone. That was exciting and wonderful updates.
I had one. I just couldn't unmute fast enough.
Got it. Go for it.
This is Jason Greenwood from Divine Distillers. I have 2 bell ringers. One for Ryan, because I didn't know he turned 50. So bell ringer for him, and happy birthday. And also on June 19th, we're doing at Divine Distillers from 5 to 9. We're doing a fundraiser for the Marion Pope Food Share. So if anyone wants to come in or support that, we're trying to raise some money and do a welcome back to the world of the living, hopefully.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. That'll be fun to attend, and good to see you up in your place going to town, right?
Yeah.
All righty. Let's move on to our program. So Linda Bednars is our program chair. And so Linda, I'd like to hand it over to you to introduce our guest and our presenter, please.
All right. Thank you, Sue. President Sue and fellow Rotarians, I'm very excited to bring this very timely program to us today. With all the news in this last week, Derek Chauvin's conviction and other events happening, I know that we are all really tuned into those issues of social and racial justice in our country. And as Rotarians, I know that we have the heart to continue to work on our journey in this area. And that's what today's program is all about. So I'm really glad you're all here. And actually I'm very excited to bring you Ray White because I did see his presentation to Salem for Refugees earlier this year. I've known him for a little while, and I'll introduce more about him in just a minute. But first, I want to share a head table. I have invited Renee Campbell to be on our head table, and she really needs no introduction, but as a past district governor and past president of our club, she has been very active in helping bring the Rotary messages of diversity, equity, inclusion, and help bring our programs that from the Rotary perspective to our club. And so I really appreciate her work on that area. I also have invited Tricia Frizzell, and we know Tricia very well too, as works at Mid-Valley Community Action Agency, is program director of their Home Resources Center. And Tricia is active on Community Action's DEIJ committee. Again, their learning cohort contributing to the internal work in the agency in this area. And she brings both lived personally and professionally experiences in this area. So I'm really appreciate her being here today. And then I asked Dr. John Chapala, as a member of our Rotary Club for many years now. He's originally from India. I think Dr. John's here. And there he is. We appreciate him sharing his culture and his experiences with us as a club also, and appreciate him being here today. So thank you for the head table for joining us today. I'd like to introduce now Ray White, and as I'm glad Jen did the bell ringer for him, I should have done that myself, but Ray is officially, he's an IT supervisor for the Revenue Department of Salem Health, but he actually is much more active in the community in many ways. He grew up in Southern California, Long Beach, but came to Salem to attend Willamette University. Yay, go Bearcats. He had his bachelor's in sociology and American ethnic studies, and he has a master's degree in business from George Fox University as well. I've gotten to know Ray a little bit as a fellow member of the Salem Leadership Foundation Board, and I discovered that he's a very thoughtful person. He's very active in the community and trying to share some of his values and help leaders. He does a weekly podcast called On the Mic with Ray White. And I did tune into a couple of his podcasts. They were really fun to listen to. And he shares a lot of insight and just is a fun thing to kind of broaden our perspectives too. He's given many presentations around the community on issues of leadership, social justice, how to kind of keep the journey going. Most recently, he did a presentation to the I Lead Youth Summit. Pre-COVID, he spent time in the schools doing some college and career readiness presentations. And I really like this. He, I think, would be a fellow Rotarian at heart too. His vision is to see communities where every identity belongs and thrives. And his work focuses on equipping leaders to create inclusive communities within their neighborhoods and working spaces. On the personal note, Ray is married to Lindsay, and they have two darling young boys, aged 2 and 4, who may pop in, I guess, because he's working out of his garage. In his spare time, this was kind of fun to hear. He likes to make cornhole games, which sounds like a fun hobby. And he also likes to work on digital marketing tools. So please give a virtual, warm Rotarian welcome to Ray White.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda, and to you all Rotarians for inviting me into the space. You know, I don't take these types of opportunities lightly, and I'm just honored that I'm invited here to share this thought, share this message. And honestly, this message and thought is nothing new. What I hope to do is just make it a reminder to help encourage, to help equip in any way, some opportunities for all of us as leaders to make an impact in the community and just strengthen the work that we're doing already in the Salem-Keizer area. And so what I'm going to do right now is share one of my screens here. And we'll dive into the presentation. So like Linda stated, I also recognize that we're all coming into this with a lot on our minds and a lot of our hearts. I mean, we don't really need to explain everything that's occurred in the last year. And we may not even need to explain everything that occurred just this week. And so what I hope to acknowledge is that I see you all, I see where you're coming from, whether it is coming from a place of understanding what it is that's going on around us, whether it is coming from a place of already feeling like you are equipped to take action, or just wanting to learn, whether you're aware, whether you want to be advocates, all the ways in which that we come to the table today. I want to be able to acknowledge that. And what I hope in this presentation, it creates that space where, regardless of where you are on the journey, where you are is a great place to start. And we're going to keep moving forward together in unity as we take these steps in the work that we do. And so this presentation, Practical Steps for Your Social Justice Journey, is essentially what we'll talk about today with some handles individually that you can take, as well as they can transfer into institutional spaces too. And so here are some of the goals of this presentation. To demystify joining into anti-racist work. And the anti-racist work essentially can be encompassing of multiple opportunities to help service the community. So whether it is supporting movements that are geared towards racial justice or gender equality or refugees, what have you, just wanting to have this can transition and be intersecting in multiple ways when we talk about the work. So some of the actions that will be articulated here will join into that. The next is, again, encouraging tactical steps towards taking action. I recognize as myself as a leader, I'm really all about the action. I love when there's a framework and a message that I can grasp and have handles with. And so that's what I would hope to bring to this is some theory, but more action of why is important and how to do that. And I'm also a very reflective person, as Linda stated with my podcast. I do a lot of the reflection, sharing life lessons, self-reflection, equipping people to take action. So I often ask myself a bunch of questions just to see what is my cognitive space and where do I enter into the space. So that way I have the ability to take the next step. So there will be some reflective questions that I will share with you all too, to reflect on this journey. But as Linda stated, the mission, something that is near dear to my heart, is designing inclusive communities where every identity belongs and thrives. Where I see that align, as Linda shared with me, with the service above self, I really feel like there is a connection there between what as a community, as a group that the Rotarians are, and what they want to, and how you all want to show up into the world, into the space. Similarly to the mission that I shared as well, of seeing how can we build the bridges and big connections for people where they can feel like they're here, they belong here, and they have what they need to thrive, which is part of my story. I mean, coming from Southern California, as Linda stated, I went to Willamette, graduated in 2012, and decided, I think it's okay to stay in Oregon. I mean, it's beautiful up here. It's a little bit of different pace of life. And I enjoyed just the community that I've built on campus and wanted to see what that was like outside of campus. And so as I entered into the workforce, into the workspace, got to see more of Oregon from the Smart Start Making a Reader Today program, really just fell in love with the state and with the community, and decided to stay. Why this date is particularly significant is this is the date, or this is the year that George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin's murderer, was acquitted from his convictions. And for me personally, I was sitting at Boone's Treasury one night, just sharing a meal by myself. And while I was there, I was scrolling through Twitter and saw that he was acquitted, and the whole world, at least in the social media space, was feeling remorse, feeling very down and just hurt. And I also shared that same sentiment and shared that feeling. But then when I looked up around me, it seemed like there wasn't anyone else who had felt that shared that same sentiment. And I can understand too, I don't think everybody is glued to their phones. At least maybe we are now, but back then, not everybody was glued to their phones of what was going on in that context. But it did make me feel a little bit alone in knowing that there was this event happening nationally and not much conversation or discussion happening locally. But this did kick me off to seek that, to find that, to strengthen my own understanding and awareness, and be able to step into certain spaces and have those discussions and just learn more about, maybe nationally we don't have something grandiose as that event, but there are local things that could be occurring that are just as important and impactful, that we would need a greater understanding to understand. And so that kicked off my journey to where in 2020, as we just concluded the Derek Chauvin case, at least trial, the verdict, in 2020, when George Floyd was murdered in about almost a year ago, there was a huge groundswell of commotion, of people trying to understand and work to personally see what it is that they can do to take action in this space. And I had a conversation with a friend during that time too, who I graduated college with, who's a coach in the community. And he said, hey, Ray, you know, I have players who are deeply hurt by this, but I don't know how to connect with them. I don't know how to talk with them. I'm even struggling to understand this as well. And so we shared a moment just over the phone for a couple hours, just kind of working through this concept of can we navigate the social justice space and the cultural and social events that are occurring around us, and create space for us to understand, but also to guide other people to understand too, or just to know that, hey, you're not alone in feeling this. You don't have to feel alone in this space. And I can understand too, because he felt very, very overwhelmed by all the conversation and commotion that was happening, which makes sense, because this list here, as you see, are the list of names, a very, very small list of names of individuals and Black and Brown individuals who have died at the hands of another. And a lot of it is geared towards some of it's police brutality, some of it was the white supremacy framework or cultural implications of their death, at the hands of their death. And some of these were visually displayed on cameras, and just hashtags were created and all that. And it seemed like for a while, every day somebody new was showing up on social media. And for somebody who closely identifies with these individuals from an ethnic perspective, is taxing. It's tiring, it's hard to watch, and it made it very difficult to step into certain spaces and to even contextualize that. But then I also recognize too that even people who do not identify with these individuals ethnically, it's still taxing. It's still hard because I would understand that you would see these things occurring around all of us and just feeling really ill-equipped to take action, or unsure of how to take the right steps towards alleviating this pain, or working to create space for people who are deeply affected by this work. So a year ago on social media, everybody was asking this question: what can I do? And especially after George Floyd's incident being videoed, a lot of people were speaking up on social media, especially saying, what can I do? And because of this conversation I've had with my friend, seeing this online, and then some of the lessons that I've learned just in my life and in education, created a graphic that I will share with you all at the end of this presentation that captures some practical steps that we'll walk through today in a little bit more in depth. But that was essentially just to help guide individuals to say, where you are is a great place to start. And here's some tactical things that in a line item may seem easy, but would require work for all of us to step in and to really work to create that inclusive community where every identity belongs and thrives. And so with that, with those 9 actions, we're going to break them up into 3 different areas where we can take action. And these spaces are ones that we inhabit. You can't compartmentalize it, but you can't compartmentalize our own identities and the spaces that we are a part of. But for the sake of the presentation, we're going to talk through just some of these specific spaces and how they work together, and how we all can take action in that. But before we do that, there's this framework that I also was been creating too, titled the Advocacy Positioning Framework. And essentially, what this shows is the position that we all sit when it comes to the social justice, anti-racist work. And I look at this framework as something that we all can inhabit these similar spaces, depending on what social or cultural situation that's occurring around us. And at any time, we could be in any one of these, either at once or in certain stages of our lives or certain stages of the day. And so we're going to work through just these different 5 stages, and you'll see 2 different circles here, which kind of works in a praxis perspective of action reflection. But the red side is what I'm calling the circle of dissonance, and then the green circle is the circle of consciousness. And so to highlight first and foremost the circle of dissonance, which is the red side that we're focused on, I believe that we all start from a position of being absent at some capacity. There's something around us that we just are not privy to, or it doesn't, by proximity or by education or by just experience, we're just not aware of some of those things. So that could be racial conversations that may be happening around us, or LGBTQ discussions that may be happening. We just don't see it on a day-to-day basis, so they're not in our worldview. But eventually we do become aware of it by either a relationship that we have with somebody, or in social media, or it comes across our the Statesman Journal feed or what have you. And there's a decision that needs to be made. Is either when we become aware, do we then lean into that? Do we lean into it to learn more about it, or do we work to avoid it? And to be honest with you, it's easy to avoid. I do this all the time. I often avoid things that I do not understand and try to that I become aware of, and just put out the stiff arm because I may not be ready to have that discussion, or I may not be ready to engage into that space because it's new for me. But I want to encourage you all, and as I'm encouraging myself on a daily basis, that by leaning into the awareness and trying to work to understand more, not only helps you all understand the situation, but it also helps as an advocate for others who may be in that space, who are looking for somebody to feel connected to, or somebody who would engage them in that space, which will lead to the second half of the circle. If we lean into those things that we're unaware of, or we're made aware to, that helps us move into the position of becoming an ally, which is somebody who is learning more about the plight or the situation or the engagement that's occurring to a social or socioeconomic group, disenfranchised group. And then that would gear us more towards becoming an advocate, which essentially is somebody who's actively speaking out and doing specific work towards eradicating that social issue that's being occurred by a position of somebody who's in a disenfranchised position. And so for all of us, we have to understand, a question for you to reflect on is, what is your position when it comes to social justice issues? What is your position when it comes to things that we may see all happening around us on a national scale or local scale? And are we willing to take those steps to lean into that discomfort and lean into the learning and the things that we don't understand for the greater good of building an inclusive community where everybody belongs and thrives? So with that, as I said it again, where you are is a great place to start. It's awesome. It would be amazing if we all started at the top of the hill, at the top of the mountain, where the flagpole is stationed way out there, and say we are in this spot. But in this journey, we all come to it from different positions. And this encouragement essentially is to state that right now you're in a phenomenal place, because there is a willingness to lean in, and there's always room to grow and room to learn, just as I have so much room to grow and room to learn. And knowing that we can take those steps to move forward. So let's dive into those particular steps. This, again, is just a reminder of where the different spaces that we're associated with, that we're involved in, and we'll talk about each of these spaces now. So in the internal space, the internal space essentially is ourself. This is the self-awareness that we have, our own minds, our own hearts, the position that we currently sit today. And these are a few actions that we can take from the internal space. One being study the language of the oppressed. So a lot of terminology that's being thrown out there of person of color, of marginalized communities, the LGBTQ framework, language, white supremacy, anti-racism. So these are the various language conversations that need to be studied more to understand the root of what it is and how that impacts not only ourselves within our own space, but the people that we're connecting with. We all have identity, we all have biases that we come across on a regular basis. Some are hidden, some are implicit, some are explicit. And the greatest way to understand what those are is to truly ask yourselves, why do I think this certain way? Why do I have this thought about a particular people group? And work to dive deep to understand how can those be uprooted, because these various things can hinder our relationships with one another, as well as create those barriers for people who are seeking that type of community to not be a part of that. And then the third point in this internal space, essentially recognizing that our actions, our works are not there to save. I was reading a quote that talked about how if our actions are looking to save somebody, that's only going to hurt them more. But if our actions is to break each other, all of ourselves out of liberation, out of coming to the place saying, I don't have all the answers, but I want to learn more and grow together, then that would then help each other grow, because there is no position of us versus them. We're all together in this. And so with the mindset of coming into it as a savior, we're coming into it from a space, not as a savior, excuse me. We're coming into it as a space of, I want to help support you and what you need, and give you the tools to be successful, versus me telling you this is what success looks like for you. So the reflective question in this space is, how will you use your position to gain understanding? So in the internal space, internal action, just for you all to reflect on for yourselves, is how will you use your current space of where you are to help gain understanding of those around you? The next circle is the intracultural communities. And the intracultural communities are essentially those that are more so monocultural. So they're spaces where we all share the same identity, share the same perspective, same lens, to some context. So these are just, again, like your friend group, for example. Your friend group may be a monocultural space because there's a certain identity that you all share together that makes you all connected in that way. And these spaces, this is where becoming an advocate is huge, because there may not necessarily be somebody who is from the outer circle, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, may not be present in that space. But with us having a lens on what the marginalized communities are experiencing and learning to develop that within ourselves, we can step into these intercultural spaces and practice these actions. First one being speaking up whenever we see a problem. This is a tough one because you're literally going against status quo of what you see around you, but knowing that you have a voice in that space, and we are working to understand what it is that we are striving towards, and building those inclusive communities. Whenever problematic experiences occur in these intercultural spaces, having a voice to say, we can't do that. Enough's enough. We got to make a change here. The second one in this space is continuing the conversation. In the racial context and racial justice kind of conversations, it is not lost upon me that if I step into a space and talk about racial justice issues, and especially to communities that may not look like me, there is I have seen this before, where the conversation starts and dies after I leave. And how that's becomes a flash in the pan type of a tactic is we have trainings that just showcase, they come in one day and do a training and then they leave, but the culture and the conversations don't continue. And so for us as leaders is to take the initiative to keep the conversation going, so that the cultural changes can occur amongst all of us. And that way what was taught or what was learned or what we are experiencing is not lost once the event is over, or the training is over, or the conversation is done, when the person who brought in that conversation leaves. And then the next point here is using your position to create space. Prime example today, actually later this afternoon, our organization Salem Health is creating space for our staff members to have an open forum to talk about the Derek Chauvin case, and talk about the verdict, and get the raw emotions and feelings regarding those things. And as you can imagine, that's a scary thing to do, because you don't know what people may say. You don't know what people may come forth with, and what they're bringing to the table as well. And a lot of times that's okay. It's an uncomfortable, discomfortable space, but by creating space for dialogue such as that to happen, it showcases for people that we're willing to be bold, to step in and to guide ourselves through this journey, even though it's messy, even though it's not ideal for those individuals who may not see it as a problem. But for me, especially, that has been it's going to be impactful for me, knowing that my organization cares and wants to create that space for that. So the reflection I have here for us to ponder when we think about our intracultural spaces is, how will we use our position where we currently are today to be advocates for others? What would that look like for you in the spaces that are intercultural with similar shared identities? How can advocacy work look for you in that space? So then the last space is the intercultural spaces. So this essentially is the multicultural spaces where shared and mixed identities are congregated or engaged into one similar space. And these are the actions of engagement within those spaces that will be beneficial when you're seeking ways to talk about this social justice on your journey. First one being listen and understand their perspectives, and by that is the quote unquote cultural other that you are tied to and connected with. By creating space for voices to be shared and heard is important, because there's a lot of context and experiences that are not new to us, that are new to us, and hearing how it is being portrayed or how the world's being portrayed through their eyes just expands our own worldview. So creating space where listening and working to understand their perspectives is key in the intercultural spaces. The next one, checking on those who are hurting and listen. So carrying on the concept of listening, but actually taking the initiative to check in on people who are experiencing a situation of a cultural or social experience. So for example, when last summer, when Ahmaud Arbery was another individual who was running in his neighborhood and was gunned down, I had a few friends reach out to me because they knew that I was doing a lot more running in my workout routine since we've been in COVID and can't go to gyms. And they were checking on me and saying, hey, like, how are you doing in this space? Like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Hey, I'm here for you if you ever need anything. And again, that just continues to build that bridge of building community and connectivity when these situations arise. And then also practice empathy, because as leaders, we need to be empathetic and create that connections and ties to individuals to grow our community, to help people feel connected. And then the last one here is getting involved with positive and local activities. And I know as Rotarians, there's a lot of opportunities to give and to serve to events that are occurring around us to help promote their cause, to help promote their mission. And it's tying to the learning of what situations are occurring in our communities. We are then able to say, okay, but what efforts are actively working towards that here? And then joining in, asking them, how can I help? Whether it is monetary or through acts of service, being able to help promote those opportunities, because those individuals are steeped into a particular perspective or silo, for lack of a better word, supporting a socioeconomic group and uplifting them in this particular way. So the last reflective question that I'll give to you in this essentially is, how will you use your position to uplift other voices? So as I stated, there's a graphic that I will put into the chat. Once I stop sharing, I'll put this graphic into the chat. This is something that was created a year ago that walks through what we just discussed in this one page, so that way you can have it there. But I wanted to serve it as a reminder of just whenever you feel like you're in a space of what can I do when I see these things occurring around me, walking through this list and then leaning in to say, okay, maybe I need to lean in more to continuing conversations in my circles, or maybe I need to do a little bit more education of why this situation is occurring and what are the concepts that are happening, or creating or just getting involved and finding individuals out there who are active and joining in them in the work that they're doing for our community. And again, with the last point of starting where you are, which is a very important concept to have, You don't need to have advanced degrees. You don't need to read 1,000 books. You don't have to feel like you are somebody who, you know, needs to think at a level like from someone from a PhD. I mean, if that's your aspiration, fantastic. That might be mine. We'll see how we'll see how things go. But as of now, the tools and the resources that we have today are more than enough for us to get active and get involved with the work that's going on or all around us, as you are already a part of. And again, where you are is a great place to start.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ray.
Yeah.
This was for me, highly educational and motivating. Gives me some practical tools to help me on my journey. So appreciate that very much. Let's open it up for questions, folks. Usually takes a little bit for folks to get percolated, Ray.
President Sue, I've got a question.
Okay, go for it, Jane.
Ray, great presentation. I would love to know more about what that local positive activity in our community, what it is. What does that look like? Because I don't hear about that. I bet probably 75% of our club doesn't hear about it. So I'd love a couple of examples, and then how do we plug into knowing what's happening?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a great question. And I also want to preface too that the activities, some of the activities you may already be a part of that are geared towards these cultural and social events that are occurring around us. So, you know, I think about the Liberty House. I believe I talked to Allison, I believe, who works there. Like, that is one opportunity, right? Because they are advocating for a particular group and getting involved in those types of things. When we think about from a racial justice perspective, there are a few groups out there that are actively working towards creating that space, and depending on the intersection will depend on where your involvement can be in. So one I'm thinking of, Loose. They are active in the intersection of the Latinx community and the schools, school and education. And there's often opportunities where they are creating forums or demonstrations that demonstrate their engagement and their viewpoint of their identities within the Salem Kaiser School District. I'm also thinking about the local chapter at NAACP. They often have a lot of conversations going geared towards racial and social justice events. And then there's a new group that's coming up called Save Our Souls, SOS, and it's more community-based, where they are building bridges, another group that's building bridges between folks who are marginalized in socioeconomic status and folks in power. So for example, they had an event or they're working to build an event between communities of colors and the police departments in the community. So things like that. And for me, it's scrolling through Instagram majority of the day, but I believe that there are various groups that are promoting their works online that we all can be aware of.
That's great. Thank you, Ray. Larry Gray, you had a question for Ray.
Thank you, President Sue. I'd like to yield to Dr. John because he has some comments, and I can ask my question later if there's time.
Okay, great. Dr. John?
Yes, I have a unique perspective and a little background coming from India. I lived in India for the first 20 years of my life, and I have seen caste system pretty much similar. And we were not able to abolish it completely, but we have come a long way. And the focus was mostly on both sides. That is that we asked for opportunity and fought for it. And we found equal opportunity. When we got the equal opportunity, then we worked hard in order to reach the goals we want to reach, because now we have opportunity. It's like going fishing and you say, I want to be able to fish here. But how many fish you catch, how successful you are, depends on you, not so much on the opportunity itself. So the focus is quite a bit on both sides. The opportunity is given, and what are you doing about it? How far are you going? Are you putting all your energy into only fighting? Are you also putting your energies into, and most probably the visibility of it, so that people can see, yes, we gave this, and yes, we have seen. And nothing is really immediate that we can see responses or results. It's maybe a generation, but it's a slow progress. Specific fights for specific needs that has to be focused, and then go for it and work on it, and the visibility of the other side, taking the opportunity and progressing. And when that happens, it's a both-way road, both are going together.
Thank you,
And
Dr. John.
as a result, India has come a long way in the 70, 80 years that I'm 80 years old. And so I have seen that we have reached a peak in education of achieving what we want to achieve. At the same time, we are also exporting to other countries educated doctors, engineers that are all over the world. And it took a generation to do that. But public was able to see the progress on that side.
Great. Thank you, Dr. John. Ray, did you have anything you wanted to respond to with Dr. John?
No, that's a great perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Larry, did you want to ask your question? We have a couple more minutes.
Yes, thank you for Ray. Each of us comes at this issue from a different perspective, and some have more experience in multicultural and multi-ethnic situations than others. For those who are just getting their feet wet, I imagine there aren't too many Rotarians in that situation, but there are probably some. Can you recommend readings, specific books or materials and videos that might be a place to start?
Yeah, sure. And maybe what I can do in the essence of time is probably send a few of those over to Linda, who can maybe share that out to the rest of the group too. And then my encouragement is not, as you are reading, not only to read it with yourself, but read it in community and discuss what does the action steps look like after reviewing these materials. So how can we contextualize this for what we're doing?
That's wonderful. Thank you, Ray. We have time for one more question. I'm looking in the chat. Ray, I'm with the Boys and Girls Club here in town, and you mentioned iLead, that you were one of the presenters in. Can you just share, which is fantastic. Can you just share with folks what iLead is for the youth in our community?
Sure. Yeah, iLead essentially is just it's a youth conference that brings together the leaders, student leaders within our communities, and just create spaces for them to talk through various concepts. In this last one, since it was the first one virtual, a lot of the breakout rooms and from a conference style workshops were focused on adulting. So how do you, right? And what I brought to the table was talking through of how to be a leader for social change. And so just working through, here are some 6 steps or 6-part framework to give you whenever you are coming to a position of creating some social change within your school, within your classrooms, and ways to kind of think through that. And so, yeah, so iLead creates that space for student leaders to come together.
Thank you. Thank you for being a part of that. That's just a super powerful event for the teens in our community. So thank you for that. So we'll wrap up. Ray, it was just an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Like I said, I learned a lot, and you gave me some really practical steps to lean into. So I deeply appreciate that. And in your honor for joining us today, we're going to make a donation to our very own Salem Rotary Foundation in your name. And the foundation works to support families and children in our community. So thank you. With that, as we wrap up today, next week our program will be our very own treasurer, Chuck Swank. And so you won't want to miss that. talking about the club and foundation finances and how they are intertwined and interact with each other. And then next week, I won't be coming to the meeting. It's my regular Boys and Girls Club board meeting, but past President John Shirley is going to sit in for me. So look forward to seeing John next week. So with that, I will wish you all a wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you soon, and take care all. Bye-bye.